quite sure what's going on with that, but welcome to Let's Coach 2023. It's Thursday, and this is Liz, and this is brought to you by Life Coach University. So if you're not super familiar, you must be somewhat familiar if you're here. If you're not super familiar with Life Coach University, please go over to lifecoachuniversity.com and check us out. We have so many of these sessions. We think we're almost every day with Life Coach, Let's Coach 2023. And we have our monthly PIF talks and just a library full of sessions, previous sessions, conferences, courses, all of that. So go check us out. And we'd love it if you'd help us spread the word. So please do something nice for somebody. Let them know about Life Coach University. And certainly if you're getting any value, or if you have any specific questions that you'd like any one of us to answer, please email us over at hello@Life Coach University. Okay, a little bit of housekeeping. Again, welcome. Use the Q&A box if you have any questions. If you'd like to raise your hand, I'm happy to talk to you voice to voice. We can coach through some whatever challenge you're facing today. And yeah, so let's get started. Again, I call myself a strategic growth coach because I believe that there is strategy in our growth, and no matter what, we're moving forward and we're growing because nature says if it's not growing, it's dying, right? So I like to tackle things here that, maybe there's things that you're thinking about or that you're struggling with or that you know somebody that's struggling with. And today I thought we'd talk about overcoming some obstacles because we all seem to have obstacles, right? And there are really 10 reasons that hold people back from what it is they would like to do or where they would like to go. And so I thought I'd go through them and then we could talk a little bit about them. If you want to join in the conversation, please do. If you have something, whether it's related to obstacles or not, that you want a little coaching around, I'd be happy to do that. Just throw it into the Q&A or raise your hand. Okay, so one of the challenges that the top reasons that people have struggle with overcoming obstacles is that they have an inability to adapt to change, or they don't like change. And this is normal, right? We are creatures of habit. We like sameness for a lot of us, right? We like a routine. I mean, if you think about it, and maybe maybe this is something for you, but you're not aware of it. And sometimes it just takes someone to say, hey, let's talk through how things are going, or why are you resisting? Why do you feel anxious, or why do you feel a sense of resistance? And you might discover it's because you're comfortable where things are and you're nervous about making that change, right? People who struggle with this, the concept of change, they might find it difficult to succeed in environments that change a lot. And that could be a significant issue, and it's worth having conversation around. Another one of the reasons that that hold people back from moving forward is external, right? It could be external circumstances or limitations, and out of your control. It could be a socioeconomic barrier. It could be, equality or something systemic. It could be limited resources. It could be other people that you feel hold you back. And it's about how we look at those situations, right? I'm the first one to tell you that I don't think anything is impossible, because just in the word, right? It's been said, I'm possible, right? So it's about finding and getting creative and thinking outside the box. And sometimes it's good to do that with a sounding board, right? Maybe take one of your friends, or take, somebody or even take a coach and say, here's what I'm experiencing. let's talk through some of the options and really weigh them out, because you might find that you want some growth in the area, let's say, you want to grow in your career, and you live in a rural area. So perhaps it's hard to do that. Well, let's think outside the box. Maybe you look for something that's partly remote, or you look for something that it's maybe you're a great salesperson and you can do a sales territory where you work out of your home primarily, or you only go into the office once in a while. Maybe it's supporting somebody local. Like, you just need to be stepping outside of those circumstances and those limitations and looking at them from afar, because sometimes we're so close to it, we just don't see the opportunities, which is why having a sounding board is great. Another one of the top reasons that hold people back, or keep them from overcoming some of their obstacles, is lack of support or mentorship. And this is so important. When we don't feel that we are being supported, if we don't have that strong support system, it can make us feel like we just can't do it, right? It's without having that guidance or that constructive feedback or that encouragement that it might make it feel harder and more challenging. But when somebody is in your corner and you can talk to them and you can say, hey, this is what I want to do, and they cheerlead you and they encourage you, it gives you a sense of accountability. It gives you a sense of support, and I mean, I've experienced this for years, where I felt like I was out on an island alone, and all I wanted was somebody that would support me. And I don't mean support me in a financial way. I don't mean support me in an activity so much. I just meant I wanted somebody who was in my corner, who I know I could look to for when those times hit and I'm a little uncertain, and they would say, you know what, you're doing the right thing, or you know what, you've got this. And that's just, we are creatures that like community and family and friends, and having the support around us from our company or from just community at large is super important to help us feel confident enough to go and take that on. And the mentorship aspect of it, if it's a change of something that you're not familiar with, having a mentor, somebody that's been there before, right? That's what a mentor is somebody that's further down the road than you. They don't have to have made it all the way down the road, but they're a few steps ahead or a few chapters ahead, or however you want to put that. They can help guide you. You can talk to them. They understand where you are because they've been there. And perhaps some of the suggestions or advice or conversation that they have with you would help kind of you cut the corners that they missed, right? Learning from their experience. Mentorship is super important, and you can have a mentor for everything. You could have a parenting mentor. You could have a mentor in the current role that you're in. You could have a mentor in the role that you'd like to go into. You could have a sports mentor. You could have, whatever that is, right? It's about finding somebody who's been there before, that's willing to guide you and sort of be your North Star there. So moving on, another one of the top reasons that people don't push through and people don't overcome obstacles, or it holds them back, is procrastination and lack of discipline. Now, I'd like to challenge that in the sense of, yes, procrastination or lack of discipline will always hold you back, right? It hinders your success, it derails your progress. because you're putting off important tasks or failing to follow through on commitments, and that can lead to a lot of missed opportunities. But the challenge that I want to make here is, if you find that you're procrastinating, and you don't feel disciplined about something, you're not moving forward with something, then I'd invite you to look a little deeper. Maybe sit with this. If you're a journal writer, if you're a journaler, sit with your journal and try and dig to why you're procrastinating. And it could very well be that whatever you're working towards, even though it sounds great, it's not working for some aspect of you. And perhaps it could be that there's a piece of you that feels you'll lose out on something else. And that's worth digging into. Perhaps that it's too much of a leap, that there's a feeling of not being able to succeed because you don't have proof that you've done it before, right? Sometimes our systems, it likes to have evidence that you can do it, right? We don't wake up thinking, how can we, not make our grade today? How could we fail today? And society has given us this crazy notion that, over the more recent years, I guess, is that failure is a bad thing. You go to school and they put a big fat F on your paper. And instead of celebrating your trying and pushing your envelope, it's, oh my gosh, that's a bad thing. Failure's feedback. Look at Thomas Edison. 10,000 times it took him to make the light bulb. That means he failed 9,999 times. That's a lot of failure. But when asked, he said he just found 9,999 times, ways that it didn't work. And that's the mindset that around the failure, because life is the grand experiment, right? We are constantly coming up with a hypothesis and testing that hypothesis. We've learned this in school, right? What do we want to achieve? How do we think it's going to happen? What do we need to set that up? And let's try it. Oh, it didn't work. Okay, let's go back and see what one thing can we tweak to see if that works. And that's really using that same thought process in our lives is going to put you on a different path, right? Instead of taking those times that you've tried something and it didn't work and allowing that to derail you and your progress, and then thus cause you to procrastinate on similar things down the road. It's about changing our mindset, right? Dr. Wayne Dyer, change the way you look at things and things you look at will change. And it's so true. If you look at it like, oh, that didn't work, next, let's see what we can come up with, you're going to be more excited about it. And if you're procrastinating or you don't have the discipline, then there's something else happening there. There's something that's not working in here for you that you just need to tweak and get your fingers on, because if it's something really meaningful for you, then you need to kind of ferret that out and find a way. Perhaps the way things are happening now is giving you a certain benefit or a certain payoff that you might not even be aware of. But if you try to shift to going over here, maybe you're not seeing that you could have the same gift or payoff from that. So procrastination and lack of discipline, it is something that does hold us back from moving forward. It does keep us from overcoming any obstacles, but it requires some digging into to get through that. Lack of skills or knowledge is another big one, and that's a little bit more obvious, I would say. If you want to be a doctor, but you've never been to medical school, there's a big gap there, and you're going to have to figure that out. If you want to be a boat captain, same thing. You have to gain the skills and the knowledge to be able to do that. And without those skills and knowledge, it's absolutely going to impede your success, right? Continuous learning and acquiring new skills and seeking the necessary expertise is often essential to be able to achieve our goals. And that's part of the outcome planning. When you are planning for your goal or your outcome, one of the things you need to seriously look at are resources and skills and knowledge. Do you have it? And if you don't, how can you get it? Where can you get it? And start brainstorming that. Another, I think this is the sixth one, or I'm sorry, the fifth one, of the top 10 reasons why we hold ourselves back or we don't overcome any obstacles is a lack of planning and organization. And this is similar to the procrastination in the sense that it could be indicative that there's something else there. You have to have a structured approach to whatever it is you're trying to overcome, whatever it is, whatever outcome it is that you're looking for. People may find themselves overwhelmed by too much, and therefore it holds them back and they're unable to manage their time and their resources effectively. When you're feeling overwhelmed, how do you deal with that? Think about that when you're not overwhelmed. How do you handle that? If you could spend a few minutes, think about a time when you were just so overwhelmed, you didn't know what to do. What did you do? And learn from how we handle things previously and get some coaching around that. Because sometimes it's a super simple thing that we just can't see. And sometimes it just takes that other person to come at it from a different angle. And when you're overwhelmed, one of the first things I do with my clients when they're feeling that way is I'm like, stop. Let's just take a moment and consider what's happening around us. And then record it, write it down. Just list factually, no judgment, just that all this is happening at the same time. Because somehow when you translate it from here and you put it on paper or you speak it out loud, it sort of loses its power and it becomes something you can look at a little bit more logically. So in that moment of, if it's overwhelm, you put it down on paper. If we're talking about a planning process and organization, it's helpful too to brainstorm what it is that needs to happen. You know where you want to go. Start from the end and work your way back. What do you need to happen before the final stage? What's the last thing? And then work your way back. Sometimes it's hard to see from where you are now to where you want to be. But if you think about where you want to be and you work your way back, it can shed some really good light on this. And then you have everything down on paper and you start to put things in categories. What needs to come first? And you can organize it. And that helps with the planning process. And when you're in that planning process, make sure you include some benchmarks so that you're checking constantly. How often are you going to check your progress? How will you know when you get there? These are important questions to consider, right? How do you know that you're on the right track? What will you see? What will you experience? And sometimes it helps to work this out with somebody else. Another one of the top 10 reasons that hold people back is this is crippling in so many aspects of our lives. And that's a negative mindset and the limiting beliefs that we carry with us. These are real. I had a conversation, we talked about this before, I know I've brought it up, with one of my kids who was talking about, oh, well, it's everybody has a negativity bias. I challenge that. I think it's habitual, right? when you were born, when people are come out into this world as infants, they don't turn their nose up at food. Like they have no negativity. It's a learned behavior. And this is it's everywhere. You know, our news stories, what's that saying? If it bleeds, it leads. Like they want the bad stuff. They even made music around it. Was it MTV by Dire Straits? You know, they want the more horrific it is, the more people will watch it. So you're struggling any given time to find good news. You know, tell me about the young college student who came from nothing and invented something that's changing lives. Like that's amazing, but we don't talk about that. Our culture is very negatively focused. And perhaps that is a learning thing that we needed to have way back when we were cavemen. And anytime you heard a rustling in the bushes, you had to be afraid of it being a tiger who wanted to eat you. And so maybe that is where it comes from. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychologist. But those negative mindset, and add that with limiting beliefs, they're crippling. They hinder our success and they undermine our confidence at any turn. And those thoughts that you have, they can become self-fulfilling prophecies, right? What's that saying? That which you think about, you bring about. I think it was Napoleon Hill, thoughts become things. So if you're constantly focused on the negative mindset, the fixed mindset that you are born this way and there's no way you're going to change, or woe is me, this will never happen for me, then your brain is so brilliant, it searches for evidence of what you're thinking. That's why it does that. That's the reticular activating system that I know I've mentioned before, where, you know, if you buy a white car, all of a sudden everywhere you see white cars, because your brain says, oh, that's what you're interested in. Let me go find that for you. Because our brains filter so much of what we see and hear and feel and experience in the day, because otherwise I think we'd probably be out of our minds, that it will focus on things that are top of mind for you. So that's definitely something to work on with a coach, you know, or other people, getting rid of your limiting beliefs and your negative mindset. Fear of failure, that's a big one, and that follows people all over. And we talked a little bit about failure earlier, right? This paralyzes people and it prevents them from taking risks or pursuing their goals because they're afraid, if I try, I'm going to fail. It's a fear of making mistakes or facing some setbacks. And this will really limit your success. And this goes with the negative thinking and the limiting beliefs. If you're afraid, oh, if I try that, I will fail. Why? And these are questions, and I would invite you to journal and to dive into it. You know, why do you feel that way? What's coming up for you? Where's the proof? We do a lot of what we call mind reading as people. We assume things about others or situations, right? Then you have the lack of motivation or persistence, which I think goes back to your lack of planning and your procrastination. If you're not motivated to tackle whatever goal, I think you need to revisit the goal. Maybe it's not really something that you want. Maybe it's something that you want because somebody else wants that for you, or you think you should go after that. And finally, it's a lack of clear goals. So the outcomes are something that you need to think through, and you need to really get specific, clear goals that create a roadmap for you to success, because vague or undefined goals can just leave you, you know, like on a boat without a rudder in the middle of a big lake, right? You're just going around in circles. You don't know where to go because you can't steer there. So those are the top 10 reasons that hold people back or hinder themselves, or, you know, keep them from overcoming obstacles. So I hope that was helpful. We have a few minutes, so let me see if I have any questions. Again, I encourage you to journal a lot of this and to see what what arises from that, and think about it from a different point of view. If you're by yourself and you don't have anyone to talk through these things with, pretend that you're thinking about a friend who has this situation and you're looking at it from afar, because that does change your perspective. So, here's a good one. Change always makes me uncomfortable. It stresses me out. How do I learn to embrace it? Thank you for that question. And you're not alone. I want you to know that the stress of change is a big one for a lot of people. And especially if you're so used to doing things in a specific way. And I think my first question to you is, what kind of change are we talking about? If we're talking about major change, that's going to bring with it a lot of stress. But there are some folks out there, and this may be you, that has, you just don't like smaller change, right? You don't like eating in a different restaurant, for example, or you don't want to change the way your furniture is laid out in your house. It could be a bigger change. You don't want to change. You're not happy in the job that you're in, but you'd like to move to a different one, but you don't, that stresses you out thinking about that. And once we kind of have an understanding of what kind of change that is, I'd want to dig a little deeper and know, like, what's the feeling around this? What's coming up for you? If you think about making this change, what are the thoughts that run through your head? Because the best place to start is to start small, right? So maybe it's driving a different way to work. Maybe it's brushing your teeth with the other hand. Maybe it's not making meatloaf on Monday, but making it on Wednesday. Maybe it's, washing the whites before you wash the colors, or, I don't know what that change is for you, but it's starting small. But in that, you want to understand, what are you experiencing? Because when we get stuck into our routines, our brain's like, oh, finally, you're safe. It's very predictable. Things are going well. Why rock the boat? But then there's the other part of you, because we are made up of different parts, right? There's the other part of you going, this isn't working for me anymore. But the first part's going, yeah, but I like it this way. And that's where the friction comes and the stress comes. So how can what is the benefit to staying? What happens if you don't change? What's the benefit of staying where you are? And then how can you get that same benefit and incorporate something new? So I wish I could continue and work through this with you. Please come back again next week. I'm here next Thursday, same time, but we are out of time. And I want to thank you for joining me today at Let's Coach 2023. Please go to Life Coach University, check out the other folks doing it, check out the PIF talks. If you want to know more about me, you can go to my website, which is thelegacyofgrowth.com. Or you can email through hello@Life Coach University. We'd love to hear your feedback. Thank you so much and have a blessed day. And I look forward to seeing you next week.